The world, as we know, is in profound crisis. I don't need to tell anybody in the room that fact. We've given it many names. We call it the edge of the cliff. We call it the point of no return, the planetary tipping point. And we know ourselves that it's the human activity, both in its scale, its speed, its form, that's leading to the systematic breaching of our planetary limits and the sure decline of our life support systems on this beautiful blue planet. We're living in an extraordinary moment, and let's not underestimate that, a unique moment. And at this critical time, to help us break out of the destructive logic and foster a more integrated approach, we need to be prepared to appeal to the heart and harness the riches and the powerful narratives of faith. It was Albert Einstein himself said that we cannot overcome the logic, or we cannot overcome the problems we're facing by going to the same logic that created those problems. I would therefore like to offer a brief reflection rooted in faith to help us in this moment. Given that we're still in the Easter season in the Christian world, I'd like to reflect for 1 minute on the mystery of the death and resurrection of Christ. What place, you might ask, has that mystery of resurrection, rebirth, to do with an approach to the crisis that we're facing today and potential solutions? I think it helps us to understand where we are. We are living in many ways in the Holy Saturday for those who adhere to the Christian mysteries, the Holy Saturday of human experience. Good Friday was the day that told us that logic told us everything's over. The demise of humanity and the planet is finished due to our sins and the sins of our forebearers. A kind of an inevitability and finality dominates on Good Friday. Holy Saturday is characterized by sadness, disillusionment, and confusion. It's an in-between space. We can't see the promise of hope yet. We're struggling to imagine that a different future is possible. But we still want to believe. So at this time of planetary suspense, it's calling out to us. It calls on us, above all, to reconnect with the earth. And in doing so, as Pope Francis says so many times in Laudato Si, to see that everything is connected. The patterns of death and resurrection are imprinted on nature, imprinted in the very matter of the physical world. Nature affirms that everything comes into existence and everything passes. There's a wondrous sacredness to the earth. It's precious. Each of us is called into being and will eventually cease to be, only to be reborn in a new way. Echoes of this profound logic of rebirth, regeneration, are found, moreover, in all the sacred texts of different faiths. So if this is true for us as individuals, what does it say about the economy and the logic, the systemic logic that we're facing today? Surely the oikonomia, the household management of the planet, also has to, in some way, reflect that logic of rebirth, of resurrection. So it begs a different question. What would a regenerative, resurrected, prophetic economy look like? On the ashes of the current economy, so still marred by extractivism, individual consumption, waste, greed, we can already see the signs of re-emergence. We can see a regenerative economy emerging, which is more rooted in this pattern of death, resurrection, cycles of rebirth, abundance that mark nature and mark human experience. We see them in the diverse movements for a circular economy, for degrowth, rewilding, agroecology, clean, renewable energy, slow food, seasonality, social and cooperative enterprises. All of these are facets of a regenerative economy that is emerging already at every corner of the planet, supported by the grassroots, by movements like the Economy of Francesco, Laudato Si movement, Buen Vivir, slow food, donut and well-being economy. Led often by young people who are unencumbered by the old logic and the old way of seeing things. They provide a glimpse of a compelling vision of renewal that's in balance with nature and human need. I would say today there is an urgency to breathe life into these movements, to provide all the forms of energy, labour, land, collaboration, finance, into these prophetic emerging economies. And this is a time for bold hope. I believe that the women religious have a really important role to play here in breathing life into this new economy. Like the founders of the great orders, and I'm based in Ireland, so I know many of the religious orders that come from Ireland. Like those prophetic founders saw the need in humanity, primarily in the role of welfare. Nowadays, and they created something from nothing. That was their real amazing spirit of pioneers, something from nothing. There is now a need to do this in terms of a regenerative, integrated economy. And in particular, to do it in the area of finance, nature-based finance, new financial instruments that enable these forms of economy to find the capital that they need. They're starved of capital. That's what I see as the primary problem today. The solutions exist, but they are competing for capital in a world that does not allow them to emerge and to flourish. So I would say the women religious are already at the forefront of this investment world, values-based investors, having built up significant institutional assets over several centuries in the form of finance, infrastructure, land, buildings, working on divestment from fossil fuels, engaging with shareholders to change practices, shaping SRI and ESG. This is significant, but I would say at this point is not enough. What is needed now is, alongside this important work of reform and restructuring finance, to find a new impetus for collective action as sisters and as people of different faiths together. To construct almost needs to be made up on the hoof, to construct the financial infrastructure to enable a regenerative economy to emerge. We need to get the capital to those people who are building the new economy, in parallel with the dismantling of the old. We need to emerge from the empty tomb full of hope, with a bold vision. We need to recognise that within our circles of influence and the structures, we have significant assets. This is not only about asking others in position of power to do something different. It's now about doing it ourselves with the assets and resources at our disposal. We need to carve out the spaces, build the alliances, and generate the collective will and action necessary to, at this point, to make that promise of regeneration a reality. As Pope Francis says in Laudato Si, An authentic humanity calling for a new synthesis seems to dwell in the midst of our technological culture, almost unnoticed, like a mist seeping gently beneath a closed door. Will the promise last, in spite of everything that is rising up in stubborn resistance? Thank you.